This time we're focused on IELTS listening and why your scores might be a little lower than you'd hope them to be. I think the most common reason is selective hearing. Turns out not many have heard of that term before, but selective hearing means you only hear what you want to hear. That's not just in IELTS, mind you. This is a very common trait among people that you probably encounter in day-to-day life. I mean, have you ever talked to someone who simply refuses to listen to anything that isn't what they want to hear, but all of a sudden pays close attention when you're talking about something that they like? That's what we call selective hearing. And if I were to say whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, I'd say selective hearing is the worst. It's just as bad as selecting information that fits you and then covering it up as the truth. But anyway, the main focus again is why selective hearing happens in IELTS listening and why it's so bad. Let's put it this way. In the IELTS test, you'll be given time to look at the questions. And what most students do when they're looking at the questions, they'll highlight keywords, which is fine. That's great. I do that myself. But the problem is, they focus so much on those keywords, those specific exact same words, that if the audio is not talking about that keyword, or if the audio does not make mention of that keyword at all, then the tendency is they will not listen. They will not pay attention. The only time the student will start paying attention to the audio is when they hear that keyword and then bam! That's when all the light switches come up in their brain. That's when all the electric signals start telling them it's time to pay attention now, just because a keyword was mentioned. Now, if you're guilty of this, I myself am guilty of this from time to time, but please stop doing that. It's selective hearing, essentially. It works if the exact same keyword will be mentioned all the time. It just simply doesn't work if the exact same keyword will not be mentioned at all. And while in section 1 and 2 of the IELTS listening test, chances are the exact same keywords will be mentioned. They'll be given word for word. I mean, section 1 and 2 were designed to be the easiest parts of a test. That will never happen in section 3 and section 4. These parts of the test are now going to test your comprehension at a different level, where the question keywords and choices and answers will now be paraphrased. That will always be the case. And besides, what is the goal of the listening test? To check whether you are able to identify keywords or to check whether you're able to comprehend and understand the audio, the conversation between two people, or to understand a lecture. I think too many times students forget this core concept, the basic of basics, guys. I mean, IELTS was designed just to check whether you could understand English or not. That's really it. That's all it's really supposed to do. But what ends up happening is students look for strategies or techniques that will circumvent, if not cheat, this system where it's like, oh, I can find the answer without having to understand a single sentence in the audio. And if that's your idea or concept of IELTS, that you can answer correctly without having to understand a single thing, then please stop thinking that way now. It's not how the test or any of the tests were designed at all. In fact, the questions are designed in a way so that strategies like that should not work. That's the main concept. I mean, can you imagine a test where anyone who just looks out for the exact same keyword can pass? I imagine no comprehension has been tested. Instead, it's become some sort of memorization or keywording test. That's not IELTS at all. Anyway, so that's the problem. One problem at least. Selective hearing, where we only want to listen when we hear the exact same keyword. So what's the solution? It's pretty simple. It's actually rather too simple for some. But at the heart of it, all you have to do is listen. it is a listening test, but I didn't say just listen for a keyword. What I'm saying is I need you to listen to everything that's said in the audio. I need you to listen to the whole conversation between Tom and Peter, or Sarah and Judith, or whoever is talking in that audio. I need you to pay attention to every single direction that's being given in the map. Not just the location you're looking for, but listen to the whole thing. Try to understand it as if you were having a real conversation with your boss, with your employer, or with your friend. I mean, I can't imagine, though I'm sure it happens, but can you imagine working in a hospital and only selectively hearing for certain keywords that the doctor will tell you? It scares me because chances are there might be medical error or negligence if certain things are missed out in the conversation with a doctor. So, there's a purpose for these skills. And while listening to the whole audio sounds very simplistic, the problem is multitasking also becomes a factor. So what is multitasking now? The simple test concept is just listen, and as you're listening, answer the questions that are given to you to prove that you understand what you're listening to. But because of this, we end up multitasking. First of all, we are reading the question. Second of all, we're listening to the audio. Third of all, and the most deadly for me, is we are thinking about whether the answer is correct, the answer is wrong, thinking of whether it's relevant or irrelevant. And then finally, we are writing only the final answer. So that's 4 things done at the same time. We're reading questions, listening for keywords, thinking about the paraphrases, and then writing only the final answer. That's quite a lot. That's multitasking. We're doing 4 different tasks in one go. So what's the problem with this? We can't focus. Focusing is the most important trait in listening. If you are listening, you should be focused on the person you are talking to or listening to. But if you have to do other things while you are listening, such as thinking especially, then chances are you're not focusing, you're multitasking. Just like right now, if you are, reading, cooking, playing a game while listening to this, I'm fine with that. This is not a test at all. But you're essentially multitasking. You're not focused on just one thing or another. In the listening test, that is actually a bad thing. If you're not focused on the audio, if you're not focused on the conversation, then it's very easy to miss things or not hear a particular phrase or two, which is fine. I mean, you don't need a perfect score, but if you want to really get the correct answers, then you have to focus 100% on the audio. Now, some students might be thinking, but sir, if I focus only on the audio, then I can't write the answer down. Well, for me, writing and listening can work hand in hand. It's called note-taking. Taking down notes while you're at a meeting, while a waiter is taking your order in a restaurant. I mean, yeah, the waiter could just stand and simply listen, but you'll know that the waiter is paying attention when, as he is listening, he is jotting down notes and taking note of your order. That's what I'd like you to do in the listening test, essentially. The way most students misinterpret this is that they will only write one word or one answer. For me, please take note of everything that feels important in the audio. Use note-taking as a tool to keep you focused and alert with the conversation. Use note-taking on take notes on the questionnaires. Whether they answer a question or don't answer a question, please take notes. It's going to be helpful in the sense that in case you missed something, in case you missed the answer, you'll still have your notes to go back to. And again, that's not just a tip for IELTS listening. This is something you can apply in real life during meetings, when you have your patients or your colleagues or employer or boss talk to you. Taking down notes is not just a matter of courtesy. It's also a great way to improve your comprehension.